What's up, people? Welcome to this episode of the By the Hood podcast or webcast because I don't know how you're consuming this content. I'm your host as always. My name is Jimmy. And as we start off every show, that's with gratitude. Just want to say thank you to everyone and anyone who supports anything we got going on. Special shout out to all the students from By the Hood University. Also, special shout out to all the youth from the By the Hood Ownership Camp. We appreciate all the support. I'm joined by my partner in crime as always, Core. What's up, good brother?
What's really good? Every day above ground's a good day. Let's go get it.
Yeah, man. I see the hoodie, man. I see Haiti and Harlem. Like, I wonder if folks even know what that represents.
Where are these places?
Yeah, Bronzeville. You know what I mean? What else you got down there? Oh,
Jackson Wood,
Greenwood District.
In the Greenwood District, man.
Leave in the comments or when you watch this or listen to us, what those places represent. But with that being said, though, man, everything good though, bro?
Everything is good, man. I love being alive, man. I don't never complain about my life. So let's get it going.
Yes, sir. And as everyone knows, our platform is designed to highlight brothers and sisters who are putting out positive energy, doing great things, building businesses, helping our community. And this brother we have right here is doing all of those things, man. So I met this brother. We actually, and shout out to the OG, Tank, man. Tank had us on his platform. We were part of a roundtable discussion on cryptocurrency. And after talking to this brother, I was like, yo, we got to get you on the podcast to tell your story because you're doing amazing work, outside of the investment in cryptocurrency in terms of what you're doing in the community. And without further ado, man, I'd like to introduce this brother, Chad Copeland. Chad, how are you, fam?
I'm doing well, man. I appreciate you guys having me and love the way you started that off. Gratitude is the most important thing. Every day is a blessing, and I love that energy.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Every day above ground's a good one, as Corey always likes to say, man. So listen, man, this is about you, man, because you're doing amazing work in the community. And anytime someone is doing that, and as well as in the digital space, right? You've embraced cryptocurrency. We're going to talk a little bit about all that, but let's dig into your background a little bit, right? So where are you originally born and raised?
Born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. Mother, father, but predominantly mother running things, an older brother. Went to, public school up until middle school. And then I was my whole family full of athletes. So ended up going to a private school called the Gilman School in Baltimore, Maryland. Had a wonderful experience there. Really got me out my comfort zone. And then love Baltimore, always rep Baltimore. It's the greatest city in America, according to our bus seats. Slowly transitioned after high school and went to not too far away in DC, Northwest DC, and went to George Washington University. So
okay,
that's pretty much my schooling background.
So were you a hooper or were you play football or both?
So I was a hooper at heart, but my build was better at football. So the funny thing about it is I love every facet of football, love the games. Like my goal, my dream is to be a coach when, everything, I don't have to worry about finances or anything like that when I can just do it for the passion of the sport. But I hated practice, like to the core, hated practice so much so that football was probably my second or third love, but basketball was my real love. But I went to a football school, so while I still played basketball, and they made us also do a third sport, track. Football was something I was a little bit better at, but, my plan going into college was get academic or use football to get scholarship money. So as long as I didn't have to pay, I was happy. I was a happy camper,
So what kind of student were you coming up?
I was a class clown. Like, if I'm being completely transparent, and it was a blessing and a curse looking back on it. It was a curse because some of the things, behaviors looking back on it, you're just like sick to your stomach. The blessing of it was I made a bunch of friends, and I also realized who really was your friends and stuff like that. But I think the main reason for that was not that I couldn't focus. It was just what I had to focus on didn't interest me. Like for me, the traditional education system is very heavily based on memorization rather than learning. Ooh. And I quickly learned how to memorize. So even though I was a class clown, I got great grades, but it was just, I was never locked in. And I don't think up until probably my sophomore year of college, I never really gave my full capacity to education.
So what was it in your sophomore year at college that made you say, all right, let me give this the proper type of energy? Like what was it that happened in your sophomore year of college?
So I was an econ economics major in business administration, and it was predominantly I picked econ because basically my grandfather was a big role model in my life, and also my brother, older brother, he had taken it, and my grandfather had said, if you take economics, you can always get a job with it, right? And for me, going to college was more so my mother's dream, and not necessarily my mother's dream, but she had worked hard to put us in the position to be able to go to it, and I wanted to live that out. But after my freshman year, at least for economics and what I was learning at my school, it was all repetitive. It really came and boiled down to supply and demand.
Yeah.
And for me, my sophomore year was like a moment where, I really had to try and figure out what I wanted to do with my life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was I successful in figuring that out? That's debatable, but that was the year where, I locked in to my studies, but also locked into actually growing myself as a person a little bit more. So.
Yeah. Okay. So that's dope. So, after college, what was that journey like? Where did you, when you decided what you wanted to do, what was that? Like, did you have a specific profession or how'd that work out?
Yeah. So I always joke my day of graduation was my mother's favorite day and her worst day, because I was working, doing administrative work for the government actually. And I quit my job on the day I graduated. And the reason was because that winter break prior to it, so basically leading into the second semester of my senior year, still trying to figure out really what I wanted to do, because econ, most of the jobs you want in economics, you pretty much have to go to grad school. And I didn't want to do any more schooling, at least that phase of my life. And so I had a roommate that just happened to grow up doing a lot of magic tricks, kind of crazy as it sounds. And one day he just texted me over winter break and asked me, have you seen the movie 21? And I said, yes. He was like, would you want to try and count cards? Now, I took it as a joke, really, but I was like, it's worth trying. Read this book called The Blackjack Life and actually really enjoyed it. And we practiced, canceled. We had spring break in Jamaica planned, canceled it to actually study and practice more and like try it out at casinos near us at the time. And once we saw that, this has some real credibility to it if you're disciplined, we opened the LLC, made it a business, and that was kind of my next 2.5 years after college. My main focus was trying to, beat the casinos.
Hold on. Let's back up. So you not just counting cards, but you actually tried to do it under an LLC and build a whole business around it.
Oh yeah, we did. We definitely did. We took on investments, pitched people. It was like a real deal thing. One of the funny stories is like we had a name and then we changed it to an acronym because the name we picked said Blackjack Partners on it. And this is when you're young and dumb college kids. We didn't realize we were going into casinos, charging these business cards to stay in these rooms. And we're using these things that say, our name was DC Blackjack Partners. And so had to change to the acronym, but we were really we pitched people, had trading guidelines, built a team. It was a real business, even though, it kind of fell under the umbrella of gambling. And that's how, a lot of people viewed it.
Oh, so y'all was like Oceans 11 and 12 and all, like y'all was really in here.
It got me into crypto, but it was, I would not replace it for anything. Like,
hey, listen, I played cards for a living. I played online, but I didn't I wouldn't. I damn for sure wasn't going to no damn casino. You wild as hell, man.
It was the funny thing about it was that the main reason I did it was when thinking about what I wanted to do with my life, to be honest, I had nothing that really stuck out if I were to get a job and have an interview. And when I just kind of noticed when I would tell some students or classmates about that, like, hey, I'm thinking of pursuing this, like they just automatically thought I was a genius or just were intrigued about it. And so a lot of the push to get me to even actually put in the reps for it was that, at the very worst, I fail, but, I'm going into a job interview and that's going to set me apart. And 90% of the interview will be talking about that experience rather than if I'm
the inexperience you have in whatever job you're trying to get.
That's actually pretty brilliant.
Because
you have a story. You have a story to tell. So like,
that's
if they
amazing.
Have a number of applicants, they're gonna say, what about the blackjack guy?
What sets you apart?
Yeah,
and you can really say some crazy stuff.
10% was the ladies, of course, but 10% was that. But the other thing.
All right, so that's amazing. So so once that doesn't work out, what's the next step in your journey? So you said that's what actually got you into crypto. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So basically at that time, so I graduated around 2015. And at that time, online gambling wasn't as kind of relatively big as it is now. You pretty much had to go to Atlantic City or Vegas at the time. And so, one of the things you'll know if you're in the casino is the worst thing is when you start recognizing people. Especially, I'm from Baltimore. I stayed in, at the time, Alexandria, Virginia, and I was recognizing people in Vegas. So I was just like, I'm spending too much time here. But basically, there were poker players who were using basically Bitcoin to online gamble at the time. And I kind of refused to play poker. This is one of those weird things where I just want to take money from the casino and not other people. But, it was interesting enough for me to at least fund an account with some Bitcoin just to see what it was about. Blessing in disguise, I never played it, never used it. And so I still have some of that. So that was my first exposure to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I didn't really start to like understand it and navigate it at a very surface level until I say like 2016, 2017, like most other people.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely introduced me to it. And at the time, my transition from blackjack, while it was still something I was just doing on the side just to invest, interested in, I was actually, my older brother, he's in the NFL. And at the time he was getting into real estate, and was doing his first fix and flip in Maryland. He was with the Lions at the time, doing it in Detroit. And, first fix and flip in Maryland, timeline went way over and he had to go on his honeymoon. And he basically asked me if I wanted to be a project manager for it. And I only said yes because I just knew successful people dealt with real estate. So about a year, I was being a project manager for a couple of properties that he had, was able to scale it so that I really didn't need to be on site. I still actually do project managing on the side, long distance. And he basically saw what I was able to do with that, scaling that business. And at the same time, he was not only actually, starting to be a starter in the league and get more playing time and do more stuff, but he was teaching financial literacy at the University of Pennsylvania. And there was a lot of, the stigma was dumb jock back then a lot of the times. And so it ended up being like a very unique story. Like, you're in the NFL, but you're a professor. And especially when he first started it, he went on CNBC, it was just, he didn't have the bandwidth to actually, I don't even want to say capitalize on the moment, but take advantage, take in the business inquiries.
And I was going to ask you about that, right? Because I know your brother has like won awards and been featured a lot of places for being an NFL athlete that's into personal finance, but also teaching it. And, then I see what you do. So, I mean, I'm just asking about like, you guys' upbringing, but that's something that was instilled in both of you guys at a young age. Like, what made both of you kind of gravitate towards this space of educating the community, but also like in finance?
Yeah. His would be different. So his story is he remembers a time where basically, um, my father's still in our lives better than, most fathers, but he was going through some things at the time. So it was mainly my mother doing a lot and sacrificing a lot. And he was in the grocery store, and basically it was a piece of candy that he wanted and he couldn't get it at the time. And for him, it was like, why is this? And then later on, when he was in Detroit, he was driving around with a few teammates. And one of his other teammates, Theo Reddick, a great guy, they're looking at real estate, and they're like, man, like he was just like, why didn't we learn this in school? And my brother kind of light bulb clicked. It was like, damn, I went to the #1 business school in the world, and I have no idea about a lot of these things that, like, if you're an American, you want to do these things. Like, you want to buy a house, you want to get good credit, but at the time we weren't talking about it.
Yeah.
And he's just a doer. So he's one of those people who he'll have a million ideas and he'll actually try and act on all a million of them. There's a lot of politics with actually getting him to be a professor, but was able to do it. And he's #1 kind of class at the #1 business school in the world. For me, I always say we plan and God laughs. I don't think education was, or on my pathway at all, to be honest. It was kind of proximity to him, plus my lane was crypto, right? Like crypto did a lot for me. And I was able to orange pill him, my brother, pretty early on. And so we were able to bear a lot of fruit from that. And I just kind of doubled down and actually was like, my perspective was, I think I viewed that I got into crypto luckily, right? And even though I viewed it as luckily, I noticed that, like, I was ahead of like the curve of just like a lot of just retail people.
Yeah.
And as adoption continued, for me, it was just like, I can kind of rest on my laurels and they'll catch up, or I can continue educating myself. And so for me, it was really just educating myself. And then we have a foundation, which a lot of it is based off, educating, underserved individuals. And so, at least from my perspective, it was not planned at all. It was kind of just, I saw an opportunity to actually, allow people, high school students, to learn about cryptocurrency and get accredited for it, which I think is important. Like, I love educating, self-education, but I love to get a reward with it as well. And so, I taught the first portion of it, and I'm still looking to build it out. So if any experts out there in the crypto space, hit me up or hit the team up, and let's build this thing out.
Absolutely. So
we have an educational component to what we do, so we definitely going to link after this.
Yeah, but I have a couple questions for you, right? What was it about cryptocurrency that made you embrace it the way you did, right? Because a lot of people, it comes across their plate and they see it, but they don't get it or they don't care to get it. What was it about crypto that made it resonate with you?
Blackjack. Blackjack is, and I didn't realize this at the time I was going through it, but kind of in hindsight, blackjack is 99% about risk management and discipline and decision making, right? There are times where the premise of it is that at certain counts, there's a basic strategy of how you're supposed to play. But if you count cards, there's certain counts that you deviate from that basic strategy. And it also dictates how much you wager, right? Now, a lot of times it's very easy, if you're not disciplined, to either overbet, underbet, or there's some times where logically, sometimes the right playing decision doesn't feel right based off the count. And early on, we realized that the money didn't really matter as much in blackjack as we thought when we originally got into it. we didn't care if we ended a session down because we knew over the long run, the law of large numbers, we would end up. We more so cared if we made the wrong playing decision, or our cover was bad for the eye in the sky. Going to crypto, crypto was so volatile at the time, but for me, I was used to the swings. So like I always say, like that's the only reason I think I survived in it early on, because I didn't know what I was doing. Like before I got stocks, I got crypto, right?
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't advise to people, but but that's just how my journey was. And what I did know was, a lot of my risk management is based off the Kelly criterion. That if I don't put too much out there, but I put a certain percentage based off certain odds, that over the long run I will win. Now I'm more in the accumulation mindset, but at that time I was more of a trader, a rookie trader, not knowing what I was doing. And pretty much my experience with blackjack and just the whole premise that everything really boils down to risk management made crypto a lot more palatable for me at the time.
Okay. And I got to ask this question based upon the fact that, the organization you guys set up. Did you guys ever get caught or kicked out of any places?
My main partner got caught. So they don't, at least where we were, don't get kicked out anymore. So he got caught twice, one in Atlantic City and once in Vegas. So we were really good because I mentioned the blackjack life. We drove to Boston, met with the author, had a discussion. And one of the things that stood out is he talked to us about like, you guys will be a really good team because you're so different. So I'm 6'4" at the time, it's probably like 245, 250. I look like a football player. I look like an athlete. My partner is about 5'7", white dude, glasses, looks smart, looks intelligent. Yeah. So even in our playing styles, I could get away with a lot more than he could because we play off people's ignorance. So in Atlantic City, he got caught. Basically, what they'll do is they'll come up to you and be like, your skills are too good for this game. So you can't do like multiple hands, and we'll limit how much you can bet, right? Because in Atlantic City, they can't kick out people because they did it years ago. Someone sued for 20 million because it's not cheating. It's just playing the game the smartest way possible. And they lost. In Vegas, pretty much the same thing, but they were just like, hey, like your skills are too good. You can't play this game here. You can play craps, you can go play slots. They'll love to point you to slots, but you can't play this game. So I've never been caught, but I've kind of doxed myself.
I got you. But at the same time, though, that's interesting to play on their ignorance, right? You're not even expecting someone, that looks like you to be in there actually doing what you're doing. But
yeah.
So my question is, do you still play?
Every once in a while. So I don't play it's based off the law of large numbers. So like inevitably when I go and play, even though a lot of friends will always be like, "Look, let me give you this money, you go play it." And I'm like, that's not how it works. Like I know more than most people, but I'm still gambling. Like just statistically, I'm gambling. So I still play, but I'll mix it up some more where I'll do a little bit of that. And I love playing some craps here and there, but I actually try and stay away from the casino. Probably go like once a quarter at this point, which is compared to before a lot better.
Yeah, it's interesting you talked about like not playing poker, because poker was the only game I would go in a casino and play, because from a math perspective, I just recognize
it's easier to beat people than it is the casino.
Yeah, like the odds were more my favorite playing against people. But I get your perspective too. You're trying to go after the house. I get it. But statistically speaking, I recognize that, okay, my odds are better here.
Yeah. And
more emotional casinos play numbers.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons blackjack to me was just numbers. Poker, I was like, I could have the best hand, but someone could just be, sniper and just know how to, control his emotions and bluff better, and they could still finesse me out of it. Where, I just wanted to like, hey, blackjack's these set of rules, you play it this way. A little bit of cover involved against the eye in the sky, but I'm gonna give everybody listening or watching a cheat code.
some of the biggest poker tournaments I won in terms of making money was going on cruise ships, right? And I'll put it out there because I'm not, after Rona, I don't know if I'm ever going on a cruise ship again. But when you're in a cruise ship and they have poker tournaments, most of the people are black. You're drunk. So you just play very conservative. Like I literally, I don't even put it out there. But the bottom line is that's a cheat code to running a bag up in poker is to play on the cruise ship because everybody's blasted. They're not even paying attention. But anyway, let's see the here. Let's get back to your story though. So this is interesting, right? So I I've been watching you guys and some of the work you're doing with that curriculum. Can you explain that process? Because you created a curriculum to teach people about digital assets, but like you said, high school students, and they're actually getting credit for it. Yeah. What made you come up with that idea, and what was that process like to get that approval?
Yeah, so we had partnered. It kind of also goes back to my brother's class. So when he first started the class 4 years ago, the first thing he actually said was like, if I'm only teaching this to Penn students 5 years from now, I failed. Because the reality of it is, even though it's called Life 101, it's everything you need to know in life, a lot of those students will be fine. They'll be able to navigate certain things. And that's not the people we actually want to serve. Yeah. But we knew it could be a platform or a springboard for what we wanted to do. And so recently, this past year, we partnered this company, Emil Learning, it's a startup and based in LA. And basically they do on-demand engaging courses with Netflix style production, right? But focus on high school students. So it started with taking my brother's class and making a high school version of it. And then it was really just that the appetite of people wanting to learn about cryptocurrency in general, but also just looking at the market that there wasn't that many from my knowledge, there aren't any that really gave accreditation for learning it. Like you could still learn it in some schools, but there was no credit for it. It was kind of like just an elective. And you just had to be interested in it to be incentivized to take it. And so basically, working with the Emil team who has relationships with like the California board and all that stuff, we created basically a curriculum and guideline of objectives that got passed off and confirmed with the board. And then it was about, getting in front of the camera and teaching it. To be honest and transparent, I didn't actually want to teach it too much. I'm a brother's business partner. I'm not a big social media guy. I'm comfortable being player two. Like, as long as the check clears, I'm cool, but I can be in the background. But after creating the curriculum, it was just like they felt there was no one better to really teach it at the time. And so I taught it, very technical, focused primarily on Bitcoin. There's other ones that would be focused on NFTs and altcoins. But it was just really important that we felt that these students get an opportunity to get rewarded for learning it, because you have to learn to earn kind of in the space where you can go to Coinbase and you get a couple of dollars for learning about stuff. But a lot of that learning is, at least when I did it, like I was just clicking through it, like, all right, I got unlimited chances. And
yeah.
Like, so that was kind of basically the process of getting it accredited.
Yeah, that video quality, I watched it like your most recent post on Instagram, and I'm like, they must have done that one, the Emil team, right? Because that video quality is amazing.
Thank you. And that was the crazy thing is, I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, that was in like an Airbnb that rented out. They were building their production studio, which they have now. It's phenomenal, looks amazing. But then an Airbnb, but they, go in and, the set people put it all together. And so it was really just me just prepping and showing up and then shooting. So
yeah, that was dope. Man. So now you found your way into the education space, but also with cryptocurrency, and you're a cryptocurrency educator. What does the future look like for you? What are some of the things that you're trying to do in the future, with the nonprofit and with your, your own businesses and things of that nature?
Yeah. So The nonprofit is the North Star, right? I tell people there's things I do. So my brother and his wife co-founded Beyond the Basics Foundation about 5 years ago. We've helped serve over 6,500 people and given away over $575,000.
Amazing.
Thank you. That is my passion, and the way I could say it's my passion is there's stuff that I do with my brother that I get paid for that annoys me, like the administrative stuff that, even today I had to do for the foundation that is seamless. So continuing to build that foundation, especially after his career is done, right? There's a thing with players that, being a current NFL player versus a former NFL player, some of those calls that, people answer, it slows up a little bit. So part of my job working with Brandon was to make sure that doesn't happen. Beyond that, with cryptocurrency, I want to continue helping athletes. Help kind of a stable of professional football players, as well as other people, really get their situation together. And the reason I think that's important is because when I talk to those guys, I don't want to say there's a lot of, when I talk to those guys, it's one or two situations really. Situation one is they have a financial advisor, but because of who the financial advisor works for, they've just started to maybe dabble into the space. So a lot of times it's like either like, oh, I'll take care of it, or like you don't even want to deal with that space. On the other side of it is like, hey, I got this buddy, he hit a lick off a couple of these altcoins. Like, what do you think about this new Safe Moon and stuff like that? And I even tell people, like, the thing with the athletes is it's a lot easier than regular people, because what I tell them is like straight up like this. I'm still the size of a football player, right? What if I told them, a room full of all the football players, that like, you know what, I just decided I haven't played football in 10 years. I'm gonna make it to the NFL and like I'm gonna take one of y'all jobs. They would look at me crazy. And then what I tell them is like, that's kind of what you're expecting to do by dealing with altcoins, because you have to be so much better of a trader than people who actually have the bandwidth to actually pay attention to it throughout the year. Because any money you make if you sell before the 365 days is 50% gone, right? And compounding interest, the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, who it doesn't pays it. And so what I tell them is like, and a lot of them don't like it, focus on Bitcoin. Even to some extent, even though I don't believe in it as much, I still dabble in it. Ethereum, because it's just, it's got enough credits to it. But I try and tell them to focus on them, that wait and hold to at least a year, or ideally, wait until your career is over. Because once your career is over, I want to say I hope every player continues to make the same money that they are. Probability is that they won't. And so come down to a lower tax bracket. And that's when you can, if you want to really kind of go to that casino side of crypto, that's when you really want to do it. Rather than right now when you can only pay attention to it maybe 3 months out of the year.
You've read the Bitcoin Standard, haven't you?
My brother.
Yeah, man. That's the crypto Bible. You got it right by his hand.
I could tell based upon that response. I could tell. Absolutely. Yeah, that's the go-to. That's the go-to.
And the funny thing is, I had this book. It's usually in my other room, but now I like keep it on me. Literally because our interview with Tank. Yeah. You was like, hey, like my favorite book, bam, Bitcoin Standard. I was like, that's the one. Let me reread this one again from a different lens. So. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah. So man, that's dope stuff, man. And I'm pretty sure you've seen that documentary Broke as it pertains to athletes. That was a powerful piece, because it's one of those things that we all knew, but then when you see it laid out and you see people talk about like investing millions in inflatable furniture and all kinds of crazy investment things that they were doing. And
because as someone that studied finance, I used to always think like, why wouldn't they just buy the S&P and just not even think about it, right? But I get it. I understand, because most people like chasing lottery tickets, like they just do, and it's not even just athletes. That's just a normal everyday person. Doesn't want to do what's not sexy.
Yeah, and I'll go on a small little tangent about that. I think a lot of that is first, we got to shoot them some bail in the sense of one, there's a lot of sharks when you reach
Oh
out.
yeah,
Like
mm-hmm.
my job sometimes, not this might be 0.2% of my job, but it's like sometimes I got to be the asshole for my brother for people just asking too much, and it's very easy because people dress up poop in a gift box, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times. Two, you work your whole life to go to the NFL or whatever it is, and then, you get into your senior year or whatever, and it's becoming real, and then you kind of meet this just random financial advisor who just met you, that you kind of we've been taught to just entrust everything to them.
Yeah.
We don't actually know what their incentive is, right? Their incentive could be just to get a bunch of other clients. Their incentive could just to be hit certain benchmarks so they get their percentage. And so it's important for them to understand that those guys work for them and not the other way around, which is when you hear advisor, it kind of, you think like that person, whatever they tell me is, the right thing, but it's like, no, like
you got an advisor, you still need education. Like,
yeah,
exactly.
Like, you know what though, and I want to shoot them some bill from another standpoint too, because the everyday person, right? They actually don't make they make the most money they'll make probably later in life, late 40s, 50s. That's when they're making their maximum amount of money. If anyone has like a career, a quote unquote career, an athlete, that's kind of flipped on his head. You're given money at a young age, and then you're the lowest earning years are the years when everybody else is finally coming into their own. So it's kind of a weird thing, but so I get that. But I guess hopefully, and maybe you can have a perspective from being so close to it, that things are getting better because of people like your brother educating, and now it's talked about more.
Yeah, financial literacy is trendy, and it's a good trend. I think people try and say that and then like a negative connotation, but it's starting to be one of those things that's, a conversation throughout the culture, just like, Michael Jordan versus LeBron at this point. So, and I think it's like a lot of them saw that Broke documentary. They don't want to be on Broke 2, right?
Yeah, got you.
Brandon had a player ask him during a game when he was on the Patriots, like about financial literacy stuff, and he's like, like Bill Belichick's right there, like, even I can only speak from experience with football players, but one of the dopest things we do at our football camp is all my brother's idea. He'll get this big long piece of paper so we can draw the timeline, and it needs like 10 people to actually hold it up. And what he'll do is he'll mark off the years 21 to 24, and it'll be like almost like a ruler from like the age 0 to like 75. And he's like, a lot of you here at this camp, might be 500 people at this camp, right? Statistically, maybe one of you might make it, right? Statistically, technically, none of you will, but maybe one of you might make it. But even if you do make it, right, the statistics say that your average career is 3.5 years, right? Yep. So think about that. You focus your whole youth on making it to the NFL and doing this, and you have so much more of your life where majority of your life, you won't be playing in the NFL, or even majority of your football career, you won't be getting paid for it. So how do you have interests outside of the field? How do you actually pour and plant seeds while you're potentially in the NFL, or, using football to get to college, whatever it is, use football as a tool, football as a platform, use it to get you where you want to go, right? Because the reality of it is like, if you're doing the same thing that every other person in the camp is doing, like you're doing the same amount of gases as they're doing, right? What makes you think you're going to be the 1% of the 1% to actually make it? So like, you got to be, those are the things and conversations that we like to have with the young kids, just to kind of put in perspective that, you're an athlete, and then what? Like, some of people's student, and it could be an artist, right? Pour into those other interests. You don't know what could come from that.
Absolutely. So, a couple questions. Throughout this journey of yours, from where you started to where you are now, what would you say has been the biggest hurdle for you to get you to be the person you are now with the platforms and everything that you have?
My biggest hurdle was trusting myself, only because, the downside with the blackjack stuff was like, you got a lot of people laughing at the idea, right? And so you have to have confidence in like the work that you put in to actually validate what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And then even kind of beyond that, I'm kind of giving two is the biggest hurdle is like, I think the foundational stuff is like being sound physically, mentally, spiritually, and then we're in a capitalistic society financially. Mm-hmm. And I haven't, even to this day, I'm getting a lot better at it. I haven't really been able to put it all together, right? When I was at my physical peak, right, I was physically strong, I was spiritually strong, financially I was weak, and mentally I was weak because I was pouring all into the physical side of it. When I finally got financially well, my physical side kind of slumped off. And so the big thing for me, or the biggest hurdle for me, was finding the confidence to say no to certain things and having confidence within myself that, my time is precious. My time is technically more valuable than Bitcoin. And so those four things, I need to be pouring into those every single day. And that's got to be non-negotiable. There's not a job that should come before that. I don't think there's technically a significant other that should come before that, because if I don't love myself, how can I love someone else? So for me, that's been the biggest hurdle, is putting those four things and really pouring into all of those at the same time. And I've only really realized that it was important to do that pretty much this past, over the pandemic. It gave me some time to slow down and really think about what I want and what's important and what I need to do for the next 10, 20, 30 years of my life.
Man, that was powerful, because as you said that, you got me thinking. I think I struggle with the same. I've never been able to put them all together at one time either. And I don't think it hit me to like just a second when you said that. Like when you focus on one,
not at any point was all of those things aligned.
Yeah, like it didn't hit me till you just literally till you just said that. I'm like, well, every time I get great over here, I struggle with this. Like I've never been able to, man. So now I got some thinking to do when I get off here, man.
And listen,
thanks, Chad.
Listen, I don't got the solution yet. I'm trying, but I'm trying. I don't got
Thanks, Chad.
All right, but so you showed us the Bitcoin standard. So that's the cheat answer. You can't give me that one. Outside of the Bitcoin standard, what would you say is your favorite book or a book that's inspired you along your journey?
It's a tie between More Money Than God,
mm-hmm.
And to be honest, The Blackjack Life, because I really think, I mean, who knows, right? Like where my life would have went. But if I did not read that book, I don't stumble across crypto when I did.
It's part of your story.
Yeah, it's so much a part of my story, and really was like a big fork in my road. That book really kind of, it put in perspective for me that like I have to live my life for me and do what I want to do, because I got to live with the results no one else does. Mm-hmm. And it's not like it's one of those books where it's a fun read. It's not gonna blow your mind necessarily unless you're really interested in, going to play professional blackjack. Mm-hmm. But I can undoubtedly say it kind of changed the course of my life. Whatever that other, whatever I was supposed to do in that other dimension, we'll never know.
Yeah, Earth 3 or something. But listen, let me ask you this question, because you said that you guys actually went and met with the author. So what was that like? You're like, well, let's reach out to this guy. Like, how'd that come about? You're like, let's sit down with the guy that wrote the book.
Yeah, it was, and I don't necessarily know if this works for everything, but it was such a niche space where it was just like, let's look him up and see if we can find his email. We were able to find his email, and it's like, especially at that time, we were so dead set on doing it. And we were very comfortable with hearing no, because like if he doesn't respond or he says no, cool. We were already pitching people to invest in our blackjack company, right? For most people, right? That's me. That's literally, for most people, it's like, hey, Jimmy, I'm running a gambling business. You want to invest in it, right? And so it's like the expectation was we're going to get a no. And so reached out to him. It was a phenomenal conversation. We actually recorded it. Probably listen to it like once every 3 years because there's some funny moments. And I would say the most significant thing that I learned from the experience is that, like, even though you can get a wealth of knowledge from a book, there's nothing, maybe it's the way the book is formatted, but like having a conversation with the author and asking him directly questions that you may have or things that you didn't quite understand from the book, or might have a different perspective, helped tremendously. Like that 50-minute conversation we had with him probably saved us 6 months of work, and also like probably thousands of dollars, to be quite frank. And so
one of the things that permeates to me throughout this conversation is that you aren't afraid to like take action. You talked about your brother being an action taker. I think you are too. And based on your story, and you're not afraid to go for something, even if everybody thinks it's crazy, even if you get told a no, you're still taking action, right?
Yeah.
That's something that resonates with me as I listen to your story. You're like, people gonna laugh, but this is what we're doing, and we're doing it.
Yeah, we got one life, you got to write your story, or you can have someone else write it. It's the way I look at it.
Yeah, man. So this is an amazing story, man. Thanks for sharing. Corey, you got any questions for the brother?
He answered most of my questions, because I was going to ask about what it was like talking to the author of the book that inspired you, but you already answered my question. So there you go.
Yeah, man. So this is thank you so much for sharing your story. For one, we definitely going to build in the future, because the education space. Let me ask about that before we get out of here, though. Is it specific to a school or specific to a school district, or how do people get information about the classes and the curriculum that you built?
So you can go to hiamil.com. It is not specific to the school. I will also put out, they're soon to change their name to Subject, but right now you can go to hiamil.com. Mm-hmm. The whole point of the school or the company is to supplement schools. So whether a school doesn't have certain subjects, maybe they don't have the bandwidth to teach certain things, or they need help in a certain area, we're district agnostic, state agnostic. We are trying to supplement these schools because we saw there was a need for it, especially during the pandemic, and seeing some of the things with the digital divide. But the goal is that probably by the end of this year, that technically a student could take all HiAmil courses and get enough accreditation to actually go to college from it. So that's the goal. That's the game plan. We're still building, but I'm excited for the future, and I'm confident we'll get it done.
Man, nice. I'm going to put the links to all your social media contacts, as well as the courses and everything, within the description and the show notes. Everybody can take a look at what you got going on, man. But Chad, I just got to say again, man, thank you, bro, for sharing your story.
Appreciate your time, man.
Thank you for the work that you're doing, man. And we want to wish you much continued success, man. And hopefully we can build with you, and we can work together and help the people, man, because people need to understand what's going on in the digital space. And so your work is important. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'll end it how you guys started it. Jimmy, Corey, honored, humbled that you guys even wanted me to be on this, and grateful for the opportunity, for the platform you guys built, and to continue success, and we'll continue conversations offline and keep building.
Absolutely, man. And again, shout out to the brother Tank, man. Good brother that put us together, man. I just want to make sure I send Tank a shout out, man. Appreciate you. But for our audience out there, make sure you follow Chad, everything he's got going on. Take a look at the work that he's doing. Take a look at the foundation, because they are, he's already said over $500,000, like, into the people's hands. And that's very powerful and very important. So follow him. Make sure you check out everything that he's got going on. And as we always say to you, it's not about how much money you make. It's about how much you keep. Game elevates, and we'll see everybody on our next episode. Peace.
Peace.